How to build a successful startup in 1 month. Let me react to this. Hello, I'm Chris Thanis. Tech support said they're coming out Tuesday to throw that thing, close it up for me, but we'll see. Today I'm going to be reacting to Continuous Dribbling, great channel. How to build a successful startup in 1 month in the context of adventure-driven development. So I'm just continuing this series and just let's get into it. Let's see what he has to say. Here we go.
If you're a professional software developer, it's not all that often that we get to start something new, untrammeled by past, sometimes bad decisions. So when we do get that chance, how should we start our new project to give ourselves the best possible chance of success, whatever it is that we're doing? That's our topic for today. Hi, I'm Dave Farley of Continuous Delivery, and welcome to my channel. If you haven't been here before, please do hit subscribe, and if you enjoy the content here today, hit like as well. The cleanest of clean sheets is in a startup. We haven't yet accumulated any of the institutional scar tissue or weight of pre-existing code that generally...
But it's not like a pure clean slate, right? Because people are all coming in with their pre-done ideas that they came from other places and seen other things that they knew worked or no didn't work, or so it's not complete blank, right? We're coming in with a certain set of tools, some certain knowledge about tools, some certain perspective on the market, whatever the problem is. So it's not clean slate, but the code hasn't been written yet. But the tacit knowledge and ideas about how things should be handled are definitely rolling around. A lot of people have different ideas about what that should be. Some people see startups as a little stepping stone, so they can show that they have startup experience when they want to go to a bigger company. Some other people, it's their baby, right? It just depends on where they're coming in at, right? Where are they coming in at? Are you coming in? Have you been in these tunnels of fake agile doom and picked up a lot of bad habits, and you're now into a startup and you're just going, I'm just going to do AI, blockchain, crypto, and then skip off to the next one in a couple of years? Or is it your thing? Like, is it your thing? Are you going after the dragon? Are you going to find the cave entrance, which is like seeing a problem that could be solved by your skill set, and then dealing with a customer that you can address? So that's not everyone's on that same page.
Generally exists in all pre-existing companies. We have a genuinely blank slate and are free to make our own mistakes and maybe our own successes. This may sound idyllic, but it also comes at a cost. There's always the threat that we will make the same mistakes as everyone else. After all, those slow-moving bureaucratic hidebound institutions that we are so sure that we can improve on were also startups once.
Yeah.
Having a blank sheet is a freedom and a challenge at the same time. So how do we make the best use of that freedom, and how do we rise to the challenge and avoid the pitfalls along the way? The real problem with the startup and the freedom that it brings is that we don't yet know anything. We presumably have some cool idea.
Well, you know some things. You probably bring instead of tools, instead of libraries, instead of technologies, but it could be like you're in React, or you're using Kotlin, or you're using JavaScript, TypeScript. You have all the tooling all set up for that you've already been through or seen done one way. So you come in with this preset set of knowledge. Very rarely do you rip it down to the core and try something different, but often that's what it takes.
Idea for something new, but we don't know whether these ideas are right or good. We don't know how to do them yet. We don't really know how best to organize ourselves to do all of those things either.
Or you're cargo culting, right? And you've seen it done someplace else. You don't know all the reasons why they all put that particular way in that particular fashion. There's no documentation. You probably weren't even there when it was all set up. The people who set it up are long gone, going to another startup, right? So that's very common, and that's how it works. And you just assume that's just how it's always been done, right? It's like no.
So what does the first month look like? What should we hope to achieve in that kind of time frame? In this episode, I want to describe my own experience of a few real startups, how to begin a project well, and what our primary target should be in that first month of development, and what counts as success at this very early stage. Watch the end and I'll give you 6 key targets to shoot for in your first month. I will also recommend other episodes that explore different aspects of all of this along the way, so do keep an eye out for those too. Let me pause there and thank our sponsors. We're extremely
do this
not all of the time. Continuous Delivery Tech. Top or builds deeply understand that are very well aligned indeed with the topics that we discuss on this channel every week. So if you're looking for excellence in continuous about startups is pretty engineering in general, click on the links in the description below and do check them out. The truth about startups is pretty bleak, really. 90% of them fail in the first 2 years.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. So almost all startups are adventure driven, right? And they're gonna go after something that's you may not find the cave opening. You're you might not find a solution that you can apply your skills to, or problem you can apply your skills to. That's where a lot of it goes, right? And the ones that do is like, can you get to product market fit and meet all the requirements to sustain your effort? And in the previous ZERP days, you had like have a team for the front end, or for the web, a team for your Android, a team for your iOS, a team for your back end. You had a team for desktop if you're doing that. And all like three. These are all like that's multiple. These are multiple people team, right? So this is how it was done as ZERP. So that's can be now done with one person with KMP, like KMP using the KMP technologies. Use it write once, write one UI, one set of libraries, one language, one IDE, and you can deploy to your iOS, to Android, to web, to whatever, to your desktop, to not just and Windows, Linux. What's the other one? Mac. All of them. So yeah.
34% because they have such a poor market fit, and 20.
Right. So 30. I would say it's even higher than that. I see it's even higher. There's product market fit. Finding product market fit that's the name of the game, right? So most of this stuff is not code. Most of this is psychological, right? How you approach the market. What are you offering? Is how much better is this than something else? Is it better? Is it wider? Is it deeper? Is it funner? Is it easier? Is it less expensive? Which I don't ever recommend competing on that. But if you find a way, it's like 1/100th the price. Okay, maybe you found something. 22. Okay, didn't implement the correct marketing strategies. Yeah, okay, there's a bunch of them. And we're finding out that Google Ads, you're buying these ads, and they're doing click farms. They're actually financing click farms in Indonesia. They're VPNing into your location just to click on the ad a bunch of times. So it charges you like, you don't think that's real? Okay, that's really happening. So 18% from human resource related. Yeah, because a lot of people who look, man, the people who actually want to dare to go in a startup, well, they don't really get along so well in these environments here. They're a little bit of destroyer creator types. They don't exactly mesh 100% with everyone in these environments down here. The fake agile team, they're not quite fitting in 100%, so that's why they're trying your startup. Okay. Let's see. Cash flow problems. Oh yeah, I'd say it's even more than that. But by the time they're done, though, you have to talk to the people. So this is some confirmation bias here, because by the time you talk to them, they still have to be in business doing something. Otherwise, they go kaput. You don't talk to them anymore because they're no longer this. Okay. 6% startup failures are due to tech-related problems, cybersecurity. Yeah, plain text passwords and disgruntled people that have been given the keys to this, and the management don't know that that's like super important. You really want to manage that essentially, and you just pass it off to a junior. And let's say he works for a month or two, and you don't pay him. You don't think there might be some more than 6% here that are going to be like, you know what? Screw you guys. There's for cybersecurity. Suboptimal operations. Okay, I mean this is rounding error. 2% legal problems. This is licensing, registering, entity structure, filling format, partnership. Oh yeah, okay. So that's people can work that stuff out. That's the legal stuff is really it. But this one right here, product market fit, I think it's more like 60%. And didn't implement marketing. Yeah, they don't know how to market. They don't know how to find their customers. So it's like, how do you find your customers? Like, do you have something that customers want? How do you find them? People are like, oh, I just can write the code.
22% don't have a sound marketing strategy at all. So what has this really got to do with the tech? Well, for a tech startup, we the technologists are the ones fulfilling the vision. And I'd argue that even more than in more established companies, technology and technologists need to be partners with rather than a service to the business.
Yeah, you got to be adventure driven. You got to be down here. You got to be actually fighting in these pits. You can't be like, hey, give me the ticket. Let me give me the ticket. And I do the ticket, and we do the agile and the scrum and everything. And I do the kick, and I pass it back in and throw it over the fence to QA. And if I get a report back in, that's when I'll do something about it. Otherwise, I just don't. I'm not involved. I don't care. Those days are over. That's ZERP. That's all ZERP stuff. This whole line here is all ZERP stuff, and that's over. It was also cargo culted, thinking that you could turn a knowledge work into a production process. That's just ridiculous.
Aim is to innovate and differentiate ourselves in the marketplace, which should be the aim of any startup, really, and so give our startup a better chance of success.
Right. So this is where people he's skirting around it, trying to be nice about it. Hey, look, we're taking people's jobs. This is what we're doing. At a startup, we are seeing somebody else how they're doing it, and we're going to do it better. Preferably 10 times better if you could do it that way. If you can get up there, that's the gold standard. If you can find a way to do it 10 times cheaper, 10 times faster, 10 times better, 10 times more fun, then you've done it, right? You got it. So that's the goal. Now, we don't always achieve it, and you can still have a viable business, but that's the goal, right? As a startup. And what about all those people at those jobs that were doing it less fun, less cheap, less fast? They're out of work.
Ourselves in the marketplace, which should be the aim of any startup really, and so give our startup a better chance of success, then we as technologists are probably better placed than most people to see business opportunities in the technology that we are building.
Right, we can see where it's all the inefficiencies. We often do bring them up at these when we're at these companies down here. We often do bring them up. We are crushing, but our dreams get crushed by the crowd. You're not wrong. You're just outvoted, right? You're just like you're not wrong. But you're gonna get. There's just too many of them, right? So we get pushed out, and and we're like, oh, that's bad. It's like, no, that's really good, but it's bad for these guys. The guys who are running the business, like, I have money in that real estate. You got to come into the office, all that stuff. So these are the guys you're gonna sell to. Is also trying to sell your ideas to, and you might have a great idea, but you're not realizing they've got another way that's working for them right now, and you're screwing it up by bringing it up. So unless you can assuage those fears, they're going to always cause a problem.
At least we should be in that position. I think that if you're working in a startup, you really should be a believer in the vision. You need to buy into the proposition that the idea that the firm is founded on is a good one.
All right, the epic quest. You have to be up here saying, okay, I'm finding the solution up here, the problem I can look into, and a solution that will satisfy this thing, which is the customer, right? Will satisfy the dragon, which has got all kinds of demands and all kinds of stages, and always changing, always morphing around. And so first of all, you can see that there's a problem that you can solve with your technology, and then there's the solving it, right? There's a two-stager.
And you want to get involved and make...
That's the epic quest, right? And this is where the happiness is up here, right? This is why a lot of people go to these startups, because they get such dunked on down here and all these different standard operating procedure, tar pits of the seemingly good ideas, the tunnels of fake agile doom, the scrum coach death marches, cargo cults. That people get sick of that. It's like, okay, I want to go up here to the happiness and use my tech skills, which I've honed from being down here in this goofiness and going up through the tutorials and the personal projects and the junior mid-level roles and senior level roles, and I start to go into these things. Yeah, and my joy hasn't been destroyed yet. And I still want to try and make an end run up here with my skill set. It doesn't necessarily have to be tech, right? A lot of the stuff like technology is kind of escaping into all kinds of different areas, so that you might find a different area, to deploy. That's really what's going on.
Make it a success. Because one of the freedoms and challenges of working in startups is that you need to identify problems yourself and fix them yourself, rather than wait for others to tell you exactly what you need to do.
So you may want to keep things simple. You may want to keep things as simple as possible at the first. And there's a bunch of comments down here talking about that right here. It's like, I think the first month isn't you alone with two other people experimenting via code in the basement somewhere, you're doing something wrong. Time to market is extremely important unless it's said otherwise. So is your own experience with product and a clear vision, right? You have to have a clear vision and how to build these things by being down in these pits and still wanting to be a software engineer and do this stuff, right? You see all kinds of ways it's done wrong, and maybe you're like me. It's like there's got to be a way to radically simplify this. And even there's so much pushback because what I'm asking to do is cut people's jobs away. So it's like, what do you do? You're taking my jobs. Like, yeah, that's what I'm doing. I know it's really harsh to hear that, but it's what's going on. So we have to look at things as reality, right? This is what was happening. It'll help us reorient with what we're doing and not be so, I guess I didn't fix the problem. It's like, no, you have to fix it. It's because it's your thing, right? You're doing it up here, right? And so is getting the architecture at least partially right. I mean, the conceptual model, how things are arranged, what you're trying to do, an approach to solve the issue, the problem that your people are going to pay you for. I mean, you have to think about it, and usually the first one's going to be really bad, right? But it'll be clunking along. You have to get maybe a customer or two to believe in it and start paying for it. And you're like, okay, great. They're going to at least rebuild it and build the next one, and just with those based on those ideas and try and make it better, more monitorable, more easy to run, blah blah blah. But not all the crap. Don't put all the CI/CD pipeline like this guy's going to say to do. No. That's later on when you build the third version and you've got 10,000 customers or 100,000 customers or 50,000 customers. Then you got to add all the stuff based on those two. And I hope you keep those people around because they're real good and knowing what needs to be done. And then after you get that thing all monitored and stuff, those people can go off and do something else because that's what they're good at. They're good at starting stuff up. And they should not be held back by trying, no, you're going to do maintenance. You got a maintenance now. Let the maintainers come in and maintain it. Right? We'll be around. We'll have good relations because we're not going to be just like, yeah, we're done with you now. We're going to hire a different team to come run it. It's like, no, you keep them around. You're going to need them anyway. And because they know all this tacit knowledge, they can help you build the next one as well. If the preservers want to build the next one, they can, because you already have a really great example of how it's supposed to be done. And these guys are pretty good with refining stuff. Okay, so that's how that kind of where that goes. I've seen it go where it's healthy. And you can't really do this in a deep dive into what it is you want to be doing. At least get a bit of experience with the tech, with the domain knowledge, with the problem statement, with the market. So this guy knows what he's talking about, I believe. He's on my brain playlist. He wrote this blind. Okay. So good to hear that's mostly the same thing. I wouldn't introduce indirection at first. So you don't have to, though. So what he's saying, like, if you have to do like an event, but don't do the event-based whole, all the network merging, the pipes and all stuff. Just get the first thing, just directly right into a database that you already have. There's one static IP address. Don't try and mess with all this other stuff at first. Get it running, get it doing something, get your customers, and then build the next version with all the queues and all the dereferences and all the stuff that you just. Then you can put all the testing and all the junk that you need to do that make it solid, at least getting to the next level of thing. And then after that goes, then you start to scale it. You figure out where's the bottlenecks happen, how can I scale this thing, and then rewrite it again. Keep rewriting that thing, man. That's really what it's about. Because every time you rewrite it, and it's gonna refine it, right? You're gonna get rid of the cruft you don't need and bring in the new stuff. It's software. You're supposed to be throwing away. You're supposed to be getting rid of it, putting new stuff in. That's the nature of it. If you make it, design it, the third to be swappable, everything's easily swappable. Maybe you can delay it, but eventually you're gonna have to rewrite it. Just how it is. Unless you're doing something very sophisticated, like when you have to rely on polymorphism to the product logic, you don't really need to do that. You don't need to use interfaces right from the get-go. True, right? But so that's the second version. I'd say the first version you can skip it. Second version, you may want to start doing interfaces to prep for the third version. The second version, where you can limp along, you can probably go a year with 10,000 customers. The second version, the first version, you wrote it 3 months, 6 months, a year max, and then you have to do the second version, and that'll get you to a year and a half, 2 years maybe, and as if you're building a third one. I mean, let's keep going.
Some people love this and some people hate it. So the first steps to making a startup a success is to understand and figure out what you like about the vision personally and really understand that vision.
It's more about the epic quest, like what market are you going to go after? How are you going to go after it? The 4 Ps, I just did a video about that. But how the marketing stuff, because it's really, as a software engineer, as someone who wants to do adventure-driven development, this is what you have to think about, these things. And as you're in the business and as you're doing stuff and as you're talking to people and you keep your eyes open and realize you're probably not going to be at one company unless you're doing adventure driven stuff you're just going to be there for a little while, whether it's 3 years or 5 years or whatever, and to not get stuck and not say, oh, it'd be nice to have such job security. It's not a thing. The adventure driven stuff, they're like, if you're in tech, you really have to do this adventure. This is what it's built for, right? It's not, you're not going to really do very well at the drone in the bottom machine. You're always going to be open to layoffs, open to get rid of, open to cut. So that's just how it's going to be. That's how it's always been. It won't ever change.
Vision in some detail. I wouldn't get involved with a startup without this kind of understanding. I was the first non-founder hire at one of the startups where I worked. I was tasked with running the software development. I was recruited by an old friend who was the founder and CTO. We went out for dinner one evening. I thought that I was selling him some consultancy from my employer, but actually he was selling me a vision, and it turned out that he was right. He said, I want you to be the head of software development. You can organize this however you like.
Yeah, so this is what happens if you get in the business for a while. This just occurs because people want to work with people that know how to get things done and have a plan and a focus and a vision of how to get things done. And these things will just appear, and you don't really have to work at them very hard. But saying no becomes also a big problem, right? Like, which one do you choose? Because a lot of people goof it off. Now, when he hired on to that company, it wasn't the ZERP. It was about to be the ZERP. So he definitely benefited from all that stuff. But this is kind of how things were done back before the ZERP, about 15 years ago, before this. So this is very much word of mouth and kind of how business is done in general.
Cool, I thought. We're working on a problem that no one knows how to solve. Ooh, very cool, I thought. And we have to figure out how to solve it ourselves because it's not the kind of problem that's written down anywhere. Ooh, really cool. And if we can do this, we can probably shake up an entire industry. I'm in, I thought.
I mean, there's things like, so he's kind of like the techie stuff, but there's like also there's when something that happens when the tech becomes a one level simpler in some ways, like the KMP has, that allows one person to really leverage their skill set. That's another level of thing, right? So it's not maybe new tech. Maybe it's now that tech that's been at one level is now one level 10 times easier to access. One tenth the effort to get the same amount of output.
And maybe if we do this well, we'll make a lot of money. Nice. By the end of his pitch, I was sold. How did we start in that very first month then? First, we needed to explore the problem enough to be able to decide where to start.
Yeah.
I was keen to start as soon as possible, but no sooner. We didn't want to start writing code aimlessly. There was a little bit of that going on at the very beginning. The founders had recruited a few contractors as a stopgap to get things started while we were looking to recruit and build a more permanent team. And they'd already begun working on some code, none of which actually made it into the product that we eventually built.
Good. Absolutely. That's fine, just as long as you realize that that's not how it'll probably happen. You'll have to bring someone that has a end-to-end, top-to-bottom, front-to-back view of how to build the software, which with Kotlin with KMP makes it real simple. All these choices are done for you, and there's nothing you have to let go of. And then there's the knowing what you're going to bake, who the problem that you're trying to solve, and how to approach it, and what can be applied to it. And this guy's really smart. He's also done a lot of coding, so he has some ideas how to get that done from the beginning. So that's kind of where you have to come from. You kind of have to have a bit of the vision of how to complete this stuff from the very start. Not necessarily the code, but how it's all structured. There's only so many ways you can skin it, but having the minimal set of things to achieve the problem solution, achieve the solution is really the key. And there's a lot of cargo culting going on in these companies. They want to add every feature, bell whistle, and everything that makes it super complicated, super hard, and justifies their job. So that's the benefit though. Is like they're all stuck in that, and to try and tell them no, it's like super impossible. So it's like, okay, well, I'll just take your lunch. How's that?
So our priorities were to quickly decide where to start and to start recruiting a new development team. We spent several days discussing in some detail the problem that we needed to solve, building a broad picture of that product vision that I was talking about. We were going to build a high-performance financial exchange, and we were going to make it open to the general public over the internet, which was quite novel for that kind of thing. So we had a lot to learn in fields of high-performance computing and in the intricacies of complex trading environments like in derivatives. We had some domain experts, the founders, to help us to explore the problem in reasonable depth. And we had some technologists, me, my friend, and a couple of others who were going to be part of the team, to begin exploring initial guesses at solutions. Part of this exploration was to identify any problems that we foresaw so that we could check them out, or at least identify areas where we didn't know enough yet, and so we could better target our learning in those areas. Our system was aimed to be ultra-high performance, and so solving the performance problem was certainly at the forefront of much of our thinking. From day one, this was part of the business vision though. This wasn't just a technical challenge. This was a challenge for commercial reasons. We needed to outperform our competitors in terms of raw throughput and latency for the business vision to work out. So clearly, we needed to think about the scale of the challenge very early on. We didn't need to design for high performance immediately, but we did need to be careful to avoid any obvious dumb mistakes that we couldn't undo later if we could. We took a very experimental approach. So one of the early experiments that we spent a few days on was measuring the performance limit.
Right. So these are the kinds of things you do early on in any of these efforts to see if it's even possible. If it's even possible, and you do need to bring experts in that have a vision to see how the thing will be put together from front to back and be able to diagnose where the bottlenecks are at, and have someone that has that expertise level and expert and will. But there's no guarantee. A lot of this stuff they could have came to this thing and said, look, we're not going to be able to meet it. We need another 2 years of Moore's Law before we can even approach this with what you guys are trying to do with this public internet thing. That could have been the and we wouldn't have a story, right? And there's plenty of stories, I'm sure, that he could tell, that I could tell, about all kinds of products that were proposed. It was like the best thing ever. Just slop.
It's for a relational
so
database.
Painful.
If you pushed it really hard and
it's so painful to not know ahead of time when you thought that thing was gonna be an amazing product, but you like produced it, all this work, and all of a sudden, it's like, okay, we have to not do that again. We have to find a way to know ahead of time how, instead of spending 6 months, a year, 2 years to something that nobody cares about at all. I feel bad because it was like my life put into that thing. Yeah, you try and find a way to get other stronger signals about what actually people want, and then make sure you can find a solution to deliver it. Otherwise, just don't do that, or wait until something changes.
And really tuned it. How fast can you store information into and retrieve information from a relational database management system? That experience rolled out relational databases as a solution for our exchange. Something that we guessed would be the case, but it was worth trying anyway, because if the database had been fast enough, the rest of our job would probably be a little bit easier. So within about a week...
Yeah, that's the other key too. You do want to try the solutions that are the easiest up front. maybe it'll work fine. And you don't have to spend 3 weeks or waste 3 weeks on something that's just like you're trying to overcomplicate the thing. Just get in the early parts, just try and get something, slap it together with something that just go the easiest thing that you think would make it work for the solution. Try it, test it out. And if it doesn't work, then you move on to the next one. Because a lot of times these things will work fine. And you can launch based on Ruby or a Node.js backend written in Django or whatever. And you can just get something up and running and before, or maybe that'll be fine. Maybe that'll work just great. Maybe you don't need to change it. Like Stack Overflow is a text retrieval RAM, big RAM disk thing. Fine, sounds good to me.
Maybe a week and a half, we had some hard data on the maximum that you could achieve with database performance, and a much better picture of the vision of our fledgling company. Meanwhile, we started approaching friends who we knew to be very good to seed the core of the development team. By this time, we also had a crude whiteboard sketch of the future of our system, some guesses about how to organise the system and to start building it. At this stage, this was a very rough allocation of behaviours. We'll have a fast bit for hosting the order books for markets, there'll be another fast bit for managing the state of people's accounts, and it was at this early stage that we decided that not everything needed to be ultra fast like that.
Yeah, so the box, line, and domain context. Here, let me get this. All right, so in my How to Program for the Ground Up series, that's on my GitHub. You can get that through my YouTube. I go into the box line. So this is what we do in software design. Is this right here? The box, line, and conceptual layers. Box is a conceptual layer. This is conceptual layer, and lines, right, and arrows. And if you look at these 4 videos, I go into it, and this is the reference to that. This is what you need to know in the early days of a startup. How not writing code on a whiteboard. What? No, but so how did this arrangement here? We have there's a bus. Oh, so it means there's everything can travel along between these things. And an admin. Oh, there's a back admin. So you got 2 buses. Okay, so we're gonna have to have 2 of those someplace. Not we're gonna use XYZ Corp bus and we're put Kafka KA. It's like, no, maybe you don't need to do that in the beginning. Maybe you just do direct talk to each one talks to each other, and you just get a proof of concept off the ground. So even this thing's even good can be done at all. But they're at the next stage, like, okay, we're really gonna build something like this. We want to see how it would work with load at scale. So they had to kind of build out this stuff. So it's like the minimal thing you need to do to prove the next step. This is what I'm talking about. This run up the mountain here. This stuff right here. All this stuff up here. It's like, oh shit. Okay, looks like it's going. Oh, that doesn't work. Oh, this is going good. Oh, that doesn't work. This is going good. And then there's all kinds of people that we started these startups. Like we're trying to go up this thing, and you never heard the name of, and they fell off for whatever reason. They fell off. Before they even found a problem that they could put a solution to, before they could even dance with the dragon, which is like trying to figure out whether we can even achieve these things. Because when we're doing these startups, these new companies, it's going to be do something new for some reason. It's going to be cheaper, faster, easier, more fun, whatever, more stylized, more different language, different context. You have to prove that it actually does it apply there, because you can't intuit your way. I mean, you have to intuit your way to guess, but there's no way to know ahead of time, right?
There were other functions of the system that we could treat as more normal computing problems, things like account registration and administration tools for creating and managing markets in which to trade. This started to structure our thinking about the design of our system, so we could.
Right, there's the layers and all the stuff, and the layers. You can see how this app is put together. So when you log in, you go to the customer service website portal, and there's a notification service that's doing some sort of back end thing, and they've got interfaces on this thing, so you can swap those things out if you need to. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about, right? And in the beginning, it might be hardwired, but in the idea is like in the future, maybe we'll get that going.
Start building things to try them out.
Yeah.
We made some.
Not the 1.0. 1.0 is hard coded. 2.0, maybe you could put the interface stuff in there, but they couldn't do the 1.0. They had to go. They did a little bit with the RDMS. I'm sure they built all that stuff before they figured out how the database is going to be handled. They built that. It's like, okay, no, we really have to build this stuff out to test it at load to see if we even can go live with this bad boy.
Some very early decisions that, with hindsight, were foundational to what came later. Things like building out the high-performance core of our system as an asynchronous, service-based, event-driven thing. These were very good guesses based on our experience for building previous systems.
Right. So, but you have to start, right? You start with the synchronous. If you can get away with synchronous and you can get to see if you get product market fit and have some sort of traction with actual paying customers, then you go to asynchronous. There's a level of complexity that happens at this jump. It's a step function, right? It's not a huge one, but prove you got something first, and then we'll go to these asynchronous stuff and all the testing and all the things and all the extra stuff they have to do and all the things.
But they were still only guesses, and we didn't assume that any of them would stand up. Correct. As we learned more.
And that's the thing. That's the knowledge work. It's like, so people who don't understand this knowledge, this is what you're paying for, is all this dicking around with stuff that you don't know if it's going to work or not. And a lot of people that don't come from a software background, that don't understand the process of how software is actually created, real software is actually, new software is how it's created. Then they're going to be like super confused. Like, you don't know? You should know. It's like, no, we don't know. We don't know. We never did know. Whoever told you that they knew would kind of smoke screening you because you act like this. You gotta know. You gotta know ahead of time. It's like, we don't know. We don't know. It may fail. It probably will fail 90%. We probably will fail. But we've been down these roads before. We have a pretty good chance, because I wouldn't even be talking to you if I didn't think there was a good chance. All right, I had a little hiccup on my computers, but it's like, we don't know. But the thing is, that's why there's more risk, bigger reward. That's because, let me put it this way: this is what everybody else has to go through, and you better be. It's kind of be glad it's got a lot. This is your moat. This is like your defensive arena. Anyone that wants to come and attack this thing has to go through the same dick stuff. And they're going to try and look and copy it, but they're not going to be able to know all the stuff, right? There's going to be a lot of tacit knowledge that you can't possibly tell anybody without being on the project itself, right? So that's the other thing too. It's like, this dicking around and like not knowing is trade secret / competitive advantage. Well, what? Come on now.
Instead, we assumed that all of our guesses would probably be wrong. In reality, some of them were wrong, and others were pretty good choices. We took an experimental evolutionary approach to architecture and design, and so we discarded some ideas very quickly.
This is adventure-driven. Adopt an experimental and evolutionary approach. That's you have to do that until you get the product market fit, and even then, it's not over. So that has to be the approach. We don't know ahead of time.
And kept revalidating all of our ideas for the rest of the project as we went. We began with a handful of simple user stories, and based on our whiteboard model, we started work on building them. Using the first ones to establish continuous integration and build a very simple deployment pipeline. So it's simple deployment pipeline. The simplest one is, I push it, it copies it up into production. What? Everyone pushes the master. No, like, we all trust each other. If you wanted me to help you on your PR or whatever, I can, but I'm not going to, like, talking over in the comments section of the PR. No, we're going to talk to each other. I already know what you're going to do. In fact, we might not even have PRs. We might just push it to production, man. Just push it to production. We're so nervous, so early, and everyone, if you have a team separated enough, you got the front end and the back end guys talking. You've already talked about the common APIs to all these different things, and you can set these things up. And you've already talked about the events that will be sending all around the stuff. Yeah, you could probably maybe separate it out, but man, it's best just to have the one guy, right? One or two guys. One guy's the back end, one guy's the front end doing the UI stuff, and the other guy's seeing how all these models are put together as quickly as possible, because we're doing it a part-time when I'm tired after work, man. I'm tired after work. We don't all get, these startups don't start with money starting off the bat. It's also a lot of conversations about what's possible, and there's 1,000 things I could be doing. The opportunity cost, right? This is the other thing. This is what these people here, right here, these guys, the opportunity cost. I could be doing other things. This destroyer could be destroying other things. This creator could be creating other things, other places, for other people, right? Other ideas. There's lots of ideas. Lots of them. Who knows which ones are correct? And a lot of it's just serendipitous, be in the right time, right place. It's adventure, right? Establishing the core of our development approach, if not from day one, then at least from the end of the week one. This was the walking skeleton approach, using a sketch in code of our system to establish the deployment pipeline. We adopted continuous delivery from day one, so one of the goals of our first story was to build the simplest possible.
Okay, so he's into the CI/CD stuff, but you don't have to set that up day one. You can just merge to the Git and then bundle it up and send it up to the server. What? You can just do a VPS, one VPS. You don't need that AWS system, blah, 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 blah. Ship your Java code or whatever. Ship your Node app. Don't do Docker. Don't do it. Just send it up there. Make it as simple as that, where you just put it on the VPS. There's no CI/CD pipeline getting. Well, you know what? how do you even know this thing's gonna be worth dicking around with, right? Now he's got a different situation. He's been hired by companies about a year contract, whatever. So he's got some time. But what happens if you don't? You don't want to do all that stuff. You just want to get up there as soon as possible. Proof of concept, seeing if you can get it off the ground. Now, if as soon as you get like 2 or 3 people, okay, maybe you get a CI/CD. I don't know. Even then, it's like maybe version 2. Yes, definitely get a CI/CD pipe with the test suites going. Because even at this beginning stage, you're not really gonna do test suites. You might, the back end guy might, but the front end guy ain't gonna do that stuff. Come on now, things changing too much. We're getting requirements to change. We're talking to customers. They're saying we need this, we don't need that. Change that over there. It's like we're not doing tests for all that stuff. Come on now. Now the second version, after we get a little traction on, after we've gone through all that mess of talking to the customer and getting all these requirements, everything changing, and still wanting to mess with it enough and lucky enough to get some kind of funding somehow, somewhere, either where it's bootstrapped or friends and family or seed round, whatever the hell you're going to, then you might want to do a testing thing. After you get a little bit of traction on something, then add a little bit of testing. And then you've got 10,000 customers. Okay, then you do the scaling. And you bring that stuff over too and throw away the stuff that we don't need no more.
Possible deployable version of our system, and we did. This communicated between our services via our own abstraction for message-based communications. This was based on some work that I'd done previously with a view to open sourcing it. And we had a simple web-based UI based on some other hobby project code from Martin, our CTO.
Right, so that's, they're already messing around with stuff thinking, there's something we could use right here. Check it out. Well, check it out what I got been doing. That's what I've been over here. It's planning for this. We all do this. The guys that do the adventure different stuff, this is kind of what we do already. It's like we're not happy with how things are, right? We're not happy with how things are. We want to destroy them, and we want to create something new, and often we do. We're not just complaining, well, fucking thing sucks. It's like, no, we also like did the other part where you have to like, okay, how are you going to do it better, ding dong? Well, it just sucks. Okay, well, shut up. Everyone knows that. We already know that, sir. We already know that. But it's like, do you have a better idea? No. Okay, well, shut up until you figure out what out. We're the kinds of guys that go like, God damn it. We're going to figure out something better than this bullshit. And we're like willing to go do all this baloney. It's just like a lot of people just like, I'm good. The filter process is like, I don't want to mess with. That's why a lot of people with Asperger's, we just don't know when to stand the window and stop. We're just always doing it. They were doing it anyway, and we're just kind of all get together. And lucky enough for that guy found us, that we're on that tip, and we're just still wanting to mess with it.
We also started right from the beginning with unit tests and some basic acceptance tests that checked that our basic pieces worked together to do something useful. So we could make a working, production quality, whatever that meant at this stage, deployable system, and demo it, even though it didn't yet do anything very interesting for anybody else. But we were learning fast, and we were learning what we needed to build, how to build it, what things seemed to work out, and crucially, perhaps most valuable of all, what didn't.
Right. Part of our what didn't? People are like, you wasted a lot of time. You wasted a lot of time on figuring that stuff out. Nothing came of it. It's like, oh yeah, we figured out that we don't want to do that. It's like that's valuable, by the way. But the production line people who come from the MBA business schools, like, oh, every business process is just production. You can shave a minute off here, you're fine. Everyone's a replaceable cog. It's like, no, it's not. That's when you got something to produce out the factory. You already know what you want to make, but the design the thing that the factory's producing, that's a whole other process, and it's crazy, right? It's like it's taste, it's style, it's your context, it's politics, it's perspective, it's all this other stuff. That's like, oh, can I just do the code? Can I just do the code? Like, no, you have to do all this other stuff too. Welcome to Adventure Driven, man. This is how it works.
Defensive evolutionary approach to design, we were quite diligent in using the techniques for managing complexity, even though I hadn't defined them in the way that I do now at that time. Check out my book if you'd like to learn more about that. This meant that when we changed our minds or learned something new, the change was usually fairly isolated. So
right. That's the whole idea. It's like, but what do you need to do? How do you know what's isolated? What's supposed to be isolated from what? We don't know. So version 1, we don't know. We just get in there. And do not try and upgrade your proof of concept. Do not do that. Always make something new. Do not build it like this with the event driven stuff and these separation concerns. These things well isolated. But how do you know which ones go where? Well, doing the version 1. That's how we learn. And people are like, what do you mean you can't just go to this? Like, no, you can't. Sorry.
So, for example, when after a couple of months we started doing more serious system-level performance testing and found that we were nowhere near our target performance in throughput or latency, meaning that our high-performance architecture was a bust, we could start trying new things and still keep quite a lot of the code that we'd already written. In particular, because by design we had tended to separate accidental complexity, like message transmission or UI interactions, from the essential complexity of the logic that encoded the business behavior of our system. It meant that we could change even some of the architectural foundations of our system and keep the core of it intact.
Right, but how do you know what's the edge and what's the core, and what the edges should be? How do you know which one's going to work? How do you know the company's not going to go out of business next week or go close source their thing? All of a sudden, even though you said they would never do that, well, that never happens.
Some of this happened by accident, some by design. Because we started using some of my code for inter-service comms, which we knew would never be fast enough, we hid the detail of the actual communications from the services that relied on it. We did this by creating an abstract interface to the communications. So if you wanted to send a message from one service to another, you called transport send message, which took a message containing an address and a blob of binary data. The transport turned that into a message and sent it to the right place. This meant that when some months later we decided how to solve this problem properly, instead of transmitting the message as XML over HTTP, all we had to do was to recode the message translators and to implement a new transport.
So this interface implementation stuff, and that's the way you should design it eventually. But in the first time, you should just do the message things are slow. It's fine. Just getting the thing working at all and not optimized. So you can spend a lot. I've seen people spend a lot of time trying to get this stuff going first, when you really just need to get this stuff going first. We can do this later. We can do V2 later. We're about to run out of money, and I gotta about to get into the job. My wife is complaining, blah blah blah. I gotta buy new shoes, and the bills are coming due. You know, that's when stuff gets real, right? It's like, oh, well, in a perfect world, in a perfect world, we do this thing right from the jump, right? We'd have everything completely done, know all the things, everything we need to know in a perfect world to do everything perfectly. In fact, we wouldn't even need people, right? But we don't live in a perfect world. We need you to figure out these issues, and we need to do them step by step because this costs money. But what happens if this turtle doesn't even send a message? Then you just, okay, you've really blown it then, right? So it's like, at least we know where the messages need to be sent by someone that's willing to pay for this thing, a customer somewhere that's solving a problem, that this turtle is sending a message to solve a problem for them. Then we can speed it up, right? First, we can do the telegraph, and we do the semaphores, right? First, long distance, people have to be out there watching all the time. Then we do telegraph, then we do a voice, and then we do digital, and that's all. We just repeat that whole thing every time we do a new project. We don't have to go do the digital communications from the beginning. We can do semaphores, man. We can call people on the phone manually. There's just a lot. Come on. You do things that don't scale in the beginning. That's just how it is.
All of the services that define the logic of our system remain completely unchanged. This is one of my favorite examples of a core idea of working incrementally using design to defer decision making. In the early stages of a project, we aren't usually ready to solve all the problems. So we need to pick which problems to solve now. The ones we understand are the best ones to work on, and hide the rest by design. My advice is to concentrate on making something that works and build that code to production quality. But in a way,
I get something that works and then throw it away and rewrite it. I swear, every time people do that, the code just gets shiny and clean and understandable and cruft free.
That you can add to it when you learn more and change when you find out where it is wrong. And every time you get to a point where your answer is, we don't know how to do that yet, that's a sign to use abstraction to isolate the bits that you understand well from the bits that you don't. The best way to do this is by always designing things from the perspective of the consumer.
Right. That's very hard to do when you're in the middle of it. Version 2.
Rather than the producer of any behavior. In my example, we wanted one service to be able to talk to another, but we hadn't decided what technology to use or what the on-the-wire encoding should be like. We didn't know the answer to those questions yet. But from the perspective of a service, what do you need to know to send a message? You need some form of an address to say where you'd like the message to go, and you need to be able to put the information in the message and send it to that place. So if we code that abstraction, we can be pretty confident that we can define translators between the addresses that we're using and the content of the message that we're using for any technology that makes that happen. So after about a month, our target, and the target that I'd recommend to you, is this. Establish a working deployment pipeline that runs all your tests and gives you great feedback on the state of your system.
I'd say just for the back end, that may be useful, but for the front end, you can ignore it for the version 1. Version 2, you may have to do some stuff for the front end, your end-to-end testing for your version 2. And definitely on the back end, you're gonna have to do testing the whole time. So that's just. But he's more of a back end guy because there's very few people who talk about the testing on the front end, right? And I'm more front end guy, so that's my interest lie, and I'm dealing with all the complexity up there. And a lot of stuff just can't be tested in the same way that people think with the back end. It's like, always write a test. Like, yeah, because you're a back end dev, so you understand that testing is required on the back end, and it makes sense on the back end. But not really on the front end. What are we really testing anyway? I mean, okay, the APIs, make sure they haven't failed or whatever, okay. That you're getting the data in and out properly, all right, okay. But okay, clicking on the buttons to do some sequence, or a failed sequence. Okay, that makes more sense. But like, uh, testing on the front end is kind of like there's been more tooling happening with KMP with Android that's making this a lot better. Where you're just taking screenshots. I just want the screenshots to match. Just let me do the flow, and I'll do a test account, whatever, and I'll always have a test account available on my back end for this whole testing for the end-to-end stuff. But like, just do the screenshot testing, so I don't have to write these tests, which are pain in the neck to write on the front end. It's like, ugh. On the back end, they totally make sense, right? But front end, no.
So that you can keep your system in a permanently releasable state from then on. Establish a working model for where you want your system to go. Product vision and technical vision both will be wrong at this stage, but if we get the rest of these things right, we can easily change them later when we find out where they're wrong and why they're wrong. Start building the team, but you need to make progress on everything else while you're working on that. Build a working version of your system to validate your model.
I would say just you get the skills to build it yourself enough because it's possible now. Back when he was doing all this stuff, you definitely had to get a team, right? You need one for the front end, one for the back end. You need the web, you need the Android, you need the iOS, you need some other thing, you need other stuff. But if you can try and keep it simple enough to do it yourself and delay each person that comes on the team, you're just doing yourself a favor. And it's possible now. When he's a little bit older than me, and I don't think he's definitely not keeping up with KMP and all this other stuff that's been happening. Having one person do all this stuff has been not possible until maybe a year ago, and on a production quality level that people are like, oh, you can actually do this now. You do have to cut out a bunch of stuff that you don't need, but so what? And then eventually, if you get traction, then you can hire people on, train them, let them know your techniques, how you did everything, and hopefully they'll listen.
Models if you can. Get it in front of people to see if your vision still makes sense. Ideally, get it in front of real users if you can, but internal.
Well, yeah, definitely get in front of real users, man. That's where for ADD you do have to show the users. You can't just show other people like stakeholders. You actually have to show. So yeah, you actually have to get traction before you even get the funding, right? That's really what I'm talking about.
Or proxies for users if you can't, will do. Defer decision making by hiding more complex stuff that you don't yet understand behind abstractions from the perspective of the code that you do currently understand. You'll be able to implement that stuff later when the time is right if you get these abstractions from that perspective. Sanity check the seriously risky stuff with experiments. Try stuff out in small controlled throwaway explorations. This should be throwaway code so that you can move fast. The learning is the product from these experiments.
It's all throwaway code.
This is my approach to starting anything new, really. It's based on the idea from Dave Thomas that big design up front is dumb, but doing no design up front is even dumber.
I agree. No design up front is dumber. That's a good one. I'm gonna clip that out. Anyway, I've gone too long on this video already. Adventure driven is definitely very slimmed down, and you don't need to do a lot of the CI/CD stuff until the 2.0, and it's definitely for people that are really can see the current way. There's got to be a different way of doing these things. There could be a lot of this complexity taken out of the equation, and you want to try and tackle it and see if that's possible. I got the glitter coming through here. Okay. All right, give me a like and subscribe. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.